Yeah, I agree.
I can't be Steam friends.
I don't need you to see how many hours I'm playing Mechabellum. You can know we can play when we want to.
Yeah.
But no, Mechabellum is really cool. It's a auto battler mech game where the reason I think quickly it differentiates itself from other auto battlers in the genre that I've bounced off of is other ones are often the kind of draft 3 RNG. It's about re-rolling to get the right units, making sure that you can build that kind of powerful unit to then go into the next one. Mechabellum is both players have access to the same units. You get the same amount of money every round, upgrades depending, and units that you place are there for the whole game unless you decide to buy and sell them. So it's often much more about buying the counter for the counter. I know you have snipers, so I buy a bunch of small units, but I'm probably going to buy a bunch of small units, so you buy the flamethrowers, and it's the double think phasing of it's really good. Games are like 20, 25 minutes. It's very addictive. I would recommend Mechabellum to a lot of people.
And it seems like good matchmaking.
Good matchmaking, and the reason I recommended it to you mainly was I saw a lot of the a few people who I found from other stuff, but were StarCraft people originally. Yeah. I see a lot of StarCraft people are coming over and enjoying Mechabellum also. Day9 was the big one. I know Day9 from Hearthstone and all this other stuff, but he was a huge StarCraft person, and now he's playing a lot of Mechabellum also.
I can't wait to dig in. I've been actually doing a lot of board games recently. Yeah. But the game that's on the edge, of course, is Baldur's Gate, which I'm trying. I've been saving myself.
Sure, I was wondering if you're going to do it, yeah.
Well, because I had a group that did Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, and we had a great time. And we kind of want to get the original crew back together, because this is the big game. And so we all got it in early access, I think, and then no one actually played it. Sure. Nope, we got to wait, and we're waiting on one of the people in the group to be done with a really big project. So. Maybe Drew and I start sneaking into it a little bit.
Into your Baldur's Gate.
Just a little bit. But,
just do a little role playing on the side.
Yeah, but I'm very excited because I love how well the Divinity has turned out, and I'm very intrigued at playing it. But I just got back from Gen Con, which was a really interesting show. Kind of a weird show for us because we didn't have any new titles coming out. That happens sometimes. I mean, one way I like to explain it is a lot of board games often take about 18 months to make, and so we have these weird schedule hiccups. And there are other reasons why we didn't release anything at this Gen Con, but the biggest reason is that games take a long time to make. Every once in a while you have these kind of quiet periods. So we still went to the show, but instead of me being at the booth coordinating a big demo team or pitching and practicing pitching a game, a lot of my time was just meetings, and then. We brought an ARCs kit, which I played with some content creators and then just showed and kind of practiced pitching ARCs for the first time. It's actually one of my favorite parts of the whole go to a show experience is having to, a game you've been working on for years, now you have to sell it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it ends up being weirdly easy or harder, and I always think about Fort and Oath as Oath is weirdly easy to sell and pitch, and Fort is very hard to sell and pitch. But if it were demoing, it's exactly the opposite. If you're demoing, I'd much rather run a Fort demo table than an Oath demo table. Yeah. But if I were working the booth and just pitching, I would pick Oath. And so it's always nice to just, adjust. It's almost like real-time A/B testing. Where people are walking by the booth and you're let me start a pitch this way. And it's always fun to spend time with staff. I got to play a bunch of new games. I think probably my favorite game of the show was either the new Oink game, Tiger and Dragon, which I really liked, especially as a partners game. It's a shedding game where you're trying to get rid of all the tiles in your hand. But the partners game, basically, if you play a tile and someone can match it, they take the initiative and then they get to play a tile. And if you can make it around the table without anybody matching it, you get kind of a bonus point.
Sure.
And the core tension of the partners game is, if you and I are partners and I play a 3, you might have a 3 in your hand, but decide not to match so that we get the scoring bonus.
Sure.
And so you're playing this
you're holding
game, where you're trying to, you're just trying to suss out what's in other people's hands. It reminded me of the really good partner trick-taking games and those.
Yeah.
And I know it's based on a much older Japanese game, but I really like that one. Weird.
Do you know who your partners are?
Yes.
Okay.
You're always playing, the person kind of across from you. And I so played that, and then the other kind of the other surprise for me was Drew picked up a copy of Wandering Towers, the new capstone game. It's Kramer Kissling, so they've done lots of games. I think including Heaven and Ale might be the last one I played, but it's a very simple game where basically there are all these towers in a ring, and you have these wizards that you're trying to move into one of the towers is like the scoring tower.
Sure.
And whenever you move to the scoring tower, that tower like picks up and it floats around the map a few spaces and then sets back down. And the tension of the game is that you're either moving wizards or towers.
Sure.
And when you move a tower, you can pick it up and like put it on top of another tower, which could cover up some of the wizards.
Sure.
So you build these tall towers, you try to break them down.
That's neat.
And to win the game, you need to get all your wizards in the scoring tower, but also have covered up at least 5 wizards.
Sure.
And it is very silly and very fun. It plays so cleanly. It's a beautiful table presence.
You said it was Capstone?
Yeah, Capstone.
That's neat. That sounds cool.
It looked great, played very cleanly. I think I probably played it 4 or 5 times because it takes 30 minutes.
Sure.
And it's got enough chewiness to it. It's very interactive. And we had a really fun time playing it. There were lots of other good demos that I saw too. A lot of good games coming out. One of the things though, and I wrote about this in a thread, one of the things about Gen Con that I find that I love the most is how you see everything about the industry, you can like see it manifest physically.
Yeah.
So like a company that's doing really well, like wow, their booth is twice as big.
Sure, sure.
Or like some companies, like the people who make, I think it's like Ascalon or whatever, like the weird cult strategy game.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's kind of the sepia tone map.
Yeah.
They are a strange company because they don't like have a lot of presence in my mind. I don't see their games at stores.
Sure.
I see them kind of rarely at cons, but they're always at Gen Con.
Yep.
And their booth has gotten bigger every year.
Yeah, it's huge.
And it's
Yeah,
always
I know the one you're
fun.
talking about,
It's always
Escapon.
like, yes. And it's always like a good time, and
Yeah.
you can see people gathering around. And and so I love seeing that. I love contacting folks and just running into old friends at a show like that. But yeah, it was good. It was a good show. I'm very happily have played every single game that I've purchased at least twice.
That's always good,
yeah. Wanted to get that done quickly.
I'm getting better about playing my stuff right away when I get it also.
Yeah, where it's like, it's next up.
It has to happen,
yeah. I brought a few games with me back to the Midwest because I took some days off after the show. And my rule was I want to play everything at least once.
Sure.
And then I was at a game store in Wisconsin, and they had a copy of Newsfjord in like a bargain box.
Sure.
For some reason, I thought, I kind of want to get my own copy of Newsfjord. But when I bought it, I was like, well, am I going to be able to play this over this trip? And I played it 3 times.
Nice.
I locked 3 Newsfjord games in. Still good. Still a rock solid
Still loving
game.
Newsfjord.
I'm still loving Newsfjord. But it was good. It was a good show. I think Indy is also like a funny town to spend time in because like the part of the city that the con is in is like my least favorite part of the city.
Sure, yeah.
But thankfully I was with a lot of people who were always comfortable like taking a little penny bike.
Because you have some family from kind of around there and stuff too.
So
also,
we would like take a little bike and go explore different parts of the town.
That's nice.
It was nice. It was busy fun.
What did I play on vacation? I played Lacuna quite a bit.
Oh yeah, it's good.
That game's really cool. I like any game that can like just fully change your like framing of thinking about it. I don't know. I feel like you play that game like 5 times and your way of thinking about it changes like in between almost every game. That game's really neat. I played a lot of Flies, Lies, and Supplies also while I was in Grand Marais. That game's great.
It's so good.
It's really good. Yeah.
Do you think it's better than the original?
Yeah, it's better than the original. That's cool. And I think it's better than the themed World War II one too, because I like bugs. Because I like bugs.
That was never in doubt.
Yeah. Because I like the bugs and the pigs and whatnot. And then, I don't know. What about you? Anything else? What about video games?
So the other Gen Con one I played a lot of is General Orders, the new and David game from Osprey, which is really good.
That one looks cool.
I will bring it in so we can play it.
Sure.
We can play it sometime. And then, I don't know. My kids are playing Pikmin and Metroid.
The recent one?
Yeah, the recent one. It's really good.
I'm doing a like retrospective for myself, like a personal retrospective on Pikmin, and I decided to. I have 4 at home. I like haven't played it yet because I was like, I bought one. I'm playing through all of them again, and I will say it's very fun to experience, even like in the video game setting, how much they're very much like different takes.
Yes.
Rather than like sequels in the same way that other ones are, where like Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2, like Super Mario Galaxy 2 is a sequel to Super Mario Galaxy 1, but like Pikmin 2's conceits and whatnot, and what they're deciding to like make the game about, just with the same mechanics, I think is I think it's like interesting, like academically, actually.
So it's funny you said it because I like listening to the Donkey review where he talked about how Pikmin 3 is like fundamentally a sequel to Pikmin 1, and Pikmin 4
Sure.
feels like a sequel to Pikmin 2.
Sure.
Which I think is absolutely right, because they are like riffs on a similar theme.
Yeah.
But they aren't, you don't get the sense that like 4 is not better than 3. It's like a different game.
Yeah, and it's very, it felt board gamey in that way when I was like experiencing them back to back, where I'm like, oh, it feels like I'm playing like somebody's iterations of a design.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this one still has the same conceit, but they're swinging the focus on resource management or time management or whatnot. Very cool stuff.
One thing I like to do with our interns, I'm sometimes better and worse at doing this. So the summer internship program is starting to come to a close. Our interns are going back off to college or wherever else, and we try to shut it down kind of like before the state fair, just because everything should shut down
Before the state fair comes into town, yeah.
And this summer I was like, I really want to do like a study of Sid Saxon style stock games.
Sure.
So we like played Big Boss.
Yeah.
We played Acquire, and then I really want to play this Saturday. I want to play Shark.
Okay,
and
sure.
maybe Stevenson's Rocket.
Sure.
Because I think
Stevenson Rocket I should play.
yeah, it's so like Big Boss and Acquire, like they're just different takes on a very similar theme. And then with Stevenson's Rocket and with Shark, they're just very different. Like Shark is like, what if Acquire were a dice game? It's very gambly, very explosive.
Yeah, it's very
and
gambly,
Stevenson's
yeah.
Rocket is like, what if Acquire were like a zero luck game?
Sure.
And it's like very like quiet. And
It's all there.
meditative
Sure.
I mean, in some of the Knizia games, I think often he has a really great way of dealing with randomness, but like Stevenson's Rocket is like just cold. Like this is the board.
Sure. It's just all.
Then you're gonna play it.
All the info's
and
there.
It is so good. But yeah, I'm excited to like round that out in a similar way that we'll play like a bunch of auction games and be like, hey, like how do auction games work?
Yeah. It's a really helpful framing for sure to just do a bunch of similar things. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell people sometimes that like if I were teaching like a game design class, I would want people to play like Age of Steam versus Martin Wallace's Steam.
Sure.
Which basically only 2 rules change, but the games are completely different.
Yeah, I
And,
mean, that's
like-
the same, like, that's the perfect example of, like, Pikmin 1, Pikmin 2 also. It's like, they changed, like, 3 things, but it feels nothing. Yeah.
It's just by the fact that, like, the games even aesthetically, like, look the same.
Sure, it's extra funny.
Like, I would have a hard time if I think if the images were small enough, I don't know that I could tell the Pikmin games apart easily.
1 and 2 are, 1 and 2 look, I could get the levels in 2 confused. They all look the same. They're all just that muddy GameCube earth texture. Like, they all look the same. Yeah.
Okay, so that's that's what we've been playing, and the little Gen Con report back. I will say, studio is busy right now, and we have a lot of travel coming up.
Summer.
This Friday, myself and Clay and Brooke and Josh are off to RootCon in Portland, where we'll be playing Root, talking about Root, and also Josh and I are going to be showing a lot of arcs, and we have some other stuff we'll be showing. We'll talk about soon. And then for the rest of the fall, we'll be off to PAX Unplugged, and then there are a bunch of other places where I'll be heading in different spots. But I think a lot.
He's on tour.
Yeah, it's going to be busy. But we'll be at Unplugged. So if you missed us at Gen Con, I think we're probably gonna have more staff at Unplugged too. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think so.
How that one's gonna work yet.
Yeah, I'm so curious how. I need all documentation of RootCon as much as possible.
Yeah,
I'm so curious.
Well, I think I might wear my RootCon shirts to RootCon.
Oh, because OG
there was, like,
RootCon.
there was the Guerrilla RootCon.
Yeah.
In like Vermont.
like small local, or not local to
like
us,
10 people
but
in
yeah.
the cabin or whatever. So I have all these RootCon shirts.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll bring one to RootCon too. Yeah, I don't. It is one of those things that I'm excited for it, but also like have kind of no expectations.
Yeah, I mean, what could it be? Who knows?
And I have found myself really liking the small cons lately. Like one of my favorite cons, which I'll be at this year, is SD HistCon, which is in San Diego. It's like it's like a 300-person convention. And I love it because it's small. Half the people there work for game companies, or do design work.
Yeah.
And so there's this great conversation. It's like impossible to be at like a bad lunch.
Sure.
Whereas like Gen Con, I'm usually like eating a hot dog by a dumpster.
Yeah,
exhausted.
on the floor. Yeah, literally. And like you're like, I'd rather be alone. It's
yeah, exactly. Whereas the other one, I'm like, no, of course I'd like to
hang out with. Yeah, keep hanging out.
So we are super busy in the studio right now, though. With the internship kind of like winding down, we're getting ready to, kind of lose a bunch of our seasonal staff.
Yep.
I am so thankful for our interns. When I got back from my trip, they gave me like a big booklet basically where they had played through almost every ARC's plotline and had notes about all of them.
Nice.
And I was like, this is just a great document.
Yeah.
And I'm just so happy to like have it as we go into the next phase. And so we've been very thankful for them. And we're starting to find our bearings. So I will give kind of a short ARC's update, and then we'll talk about the bigger news. So the short ARC's update is that it's going really well. We are in the final stages of development right now. I think there's a good chance that we're going to have everything kind of to the factory by October or November potentially, and we are going to be trying to get you the game as soon as we can. So we won't know precisely about the fulfillment timeline probably for like another month or two, but we're getting close. On the dev side, we basically, I think we have about 2.5 months more of work. That's similar to the art, to the graphics, to everything like that. So if you're following along on the TTS, you will just see everything kind of slowly tighten up. Things are going to get a little prettier. We've got, I just reviewed the laid out versions of the player aids, which is always a sign where you're like, oh yeah, I guess we are getting close. Like this is like
I need to tell people how to play
the like a player aid, right?
Yeah.
And we have like samples of the dice are coming.
Yep.
The tray design is almost done. We like built it physically and have been testing it. There's a few little things that need fixed on it, but it is very, very close. So it's coming along, and I have to tell you, it's big. It's a big game. Maybe for the September design chat, I'll bring it on camera and I can just like haul this giant box around because there's just so much content in it.
Should come in with like 3 different like shapes of boxes and like people guess which one is.
It was a funny excerpt. Like when we were doing the pitch, Josh was like making fun of me a little bit about it because when you'd like pitch the game, you're like, okay, hello, this is ARCS, it's our space game, and I would show people like, here's the action system, and here's the objective and how ambitions work. And then usually those are enough hooks to get them excited.
Right.
They're like, oh, but like how does combat work? And I'm like, oh, let me tell you about combat. People get very excited about the customizable little combat engine. And then every like third person would be like, hey, is there like a campaign mode? And I would like pivot around and just wheel out like this
pull out the
box,
tome.
just like full of cards and just pull cards like almost at random to show them different things the campaign does. So it's a lot. It's turning out really well. If you're interested in how the campaign looks, you can check out the most recent Space Cats and Peace Turtles stream where they played the first act. And I'm also very excited to touch base with I think Hunter is the one coming, to RootCon, which I'm super pumped, especially to show the little balance adjustments we've made that you'll probably appreciate. So that's ARC stuff. We have other projects underway. I know I'm overdue for an Oath expansion update. I just want people to know, like, I worked on it. It is being worked on, and we'll talk about it more in the future. And I know Patrick has news to share about Block and Path that he'll probably get into next month. And we have some other things kind of planned for other projects, but that's all stuff that will wait. The big news, though, is what we have on this table, and I'm going to let you take it away, Nick.
So we're working on a bunch of Ahoy expansion content. That's what I've been doing with like the other half to 75% of my time when I wasn't doing ARC stuff in the past few months. It's looking like it's going to be a suite of 4 new factions. One of them is a replacement for the blue faction. Another one's a replacement for the yellow faction. And then the other 2 are replacements for both of the smugglers. So I think probably the best way to do this is can we go to the top-down camera just for a sec? Sweet, thank you. So this is just kind of what some of the stuff looks like on the table, and then I'll be getting into the actual player boards and stuff a little bit here, kind of talk through it. So this is what the map will potentially be looking like with some of the new factions. Meeples are a little bit hard to see, but you guys will survive. Yeah, flip them over, I think. Yeah. So you'll see we still have, we're going to be still having flagships used by the main players. There's still going to be patrols that are put out onto the map by the Bluefin. Comrades are still being used to control islands and stuff. And then you'll see the 2 other factions on the map currently are the Sea Serpent, currently called the Leviathan. Names and things like that are all still being figured out while we go. Still very in the development phase. And then the purple faction here is the Swindler, a conniving hotelier capitalist who is selling goods, creating resorts, and trying to get people to come out to his locations. So I guess I'll start talking about the the replacement for the Bluefin Squadron, which is the Blackfish Brigade. So if you can switch to the close-up cam, thank you. This is what they look like. Again, you'll see it's currently has art and everything just ripped directly from the old versions. That'll all get new art as we go here. But the big conceit here was making sure that these factions were new takes on the old ones while still being able to compete with all versions of the game. So this new Blackfish Brigade, a faction of warring whales, is able to be used against the Mollusk Union, the original Yellow faction, as well as the new upcoming Shellfire Rebellion. Also available to be played against both smugglers and both of the new roles that are in the game too. So the big conceit here was trying to figure out how a faction was going to essentially have a similar output to one of the factions that already existed in the game while still having a very different mechanical input. It actually reminded me, Cole, a lot of our work on TMM.
Yep.
When trying to work on the alternate villain, the Shadow Paladin and the Knight, where you need the goals to still be the same because the competition is still the same. I'm trying to beat you, but I need to make sure that my way of approaching is different. So the way they function, it's still a dice placement thing. They have 5 dice, just like the regular blue faction. But you'll see above a lot of their actions, they have little patrol icons. And whenever you assign a die to one of those patrol icons, you'll be able to take that type of patrol, either a standard patrol or one of these little double patrols here, and you'll assign it to the whale pod. The whale pod is another piece that exists on the map here. I'll bring it over. And this goes around the region die on the name and on the board. And as it moves around the map, it's kind of, think of it like the tunnel for the moles or something. This is where the whales will actually spawn from. So, as I take my actions, various patrols will get placed onto this, and then I move my pod around the map, and the patrols that are in those locations have to go into that specific region. So, you have to plan ahead about where do you want your veteran patrols to be patrolled, because they only can go into that top left corner of the map, things like that. The other big conceit was trying to figure out a unique way for them to remove comrades. That's the other biggest thing that like fighting game characters, I still need the guy to be able to throw fireballs. It's kind of the
gotta have a ranged attack.
He still needs to have a ranged attack, or else he won't work. So what they're capable to do is surging. So if we can go back to the table cam, their ability to remove is about straight lines. So when they surge, it still requires a 4, just like anything else, just like removing on the old faction. But what they'll instead do is they can target one of their patrols that's anywhere on the map, and they will surge all the way over to that patrol and remove any comrades that are on islands along the way. So map construction becomes a really big element for them, and a much bigger deal for the Mollusk Union to play against, because often Mollusk Union loved having these little relationships where islands were directly in line with each other, just 2 away. So a lot of competition there very quickly.
Well, and map construction in the base game was so important, but was also a little subtle and understated. So it was a thing that when I would see people talk about Ahoy, I don't think people just knew what to do with the map construction. Like, oh no, you don't understand. You're making the area of play.
Yeah.
The maps look different. And this faction really emphasizes that.
Yeah.
Because this map, the move you just did, is horrific.
Oh, of course, yeah. This would be, I was teaching, showing some of the interns how to play it for a little bit, and they, build the map the way you would playing the base game initially, and then, one of them comes through and surges through 4 of them and goes, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah,
I see, yeah. So those new map dynamics are a really cool element. And then, just the resource management element of where you're actually deploying your patrols, I found it's a cool kind of triangulation between your flagship, your patrols, and your whale pod, where your whale pod spawns the patrols, but your ship needs to dash to the patrols. So you're kind of trying to always make sure they line up well.
It's a little more complicated than the base blue faction.
Yeah, certainly, yeah. But I would say across the board, these are more rules intensive in general, with more to think about. I've seen turns take a little bit longer because there's more things to consider. But
but the game goes from a 45-minute game to
an hour.
55.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's them. Let me get I'll get the other ones into cam before we hop down to them. So the other one is a replacement, like I said, for the Mollusk Union. So instead of a group of shell people, You are going to be controlling a faction of rebellion turtles, is what we're doing now. And they're called the Shellfire Rebellion. And they're kind of two big things they have is rather than the ship being the only point of outputting comrades, which is how they work in the original version, you have to create these other ships called launchers that will be able to actually put the comrades onto islands. So I might be able to get some of my, I'm getting ahead of myself here. The big thing they have is this this other D4 here, which is a custom Nick-made 1122334. And at the top of every round, they roll their dice, and this die automatically gets assigned to their range. And their range is how far their launchers and their flagship are going to be flinging turtles every turn at the end of every round. So they have a positional puzzle where they need to make sure their launchers or their flagship is loaded up, make sure they're at the right distance, and then at the end of the turn, if all those things are aligned, they can launch as many of those turtles onto the islands as they want. Turtles that are on launchers on the ships are safe from being surged throughout the time, so you don't need to worry about that. It's only once they're on the islands.
Critically, the turtles do not have pants because Ahoy is in a tropical climate.
Exactly.
So pants are strictly optional.
Yeah, exactly. It's just totally fine. Yeah, there's no.
An important aesthetic note.
Yes, yeah. There is. Yes, Kyle figured it out artfully.
Yeah, you just make it hot. If it's hot, you don't need
pants. Then it's fine. It's the Donald Duck thing, I think. Yeah. So a lot of their stuff again works very similar to the base faction. Beyond that, they still sail around the map. Whenever they end at islands, they're able to either gain 3 comrades onto their ship. But the other thing that they can do is that's also the only way that they can refill their launchers. So if my flagship ends adjacent to one of my launchers, I can take my comrades on board, I can load them onto one of my launcher ships, and now my launcher is again reloaded for being able to shoot on more turns. They still have a deck of cards, like the Mollusk Union. The cards are different, obviously. These cards now will let you spend gold to change the value of your range die. Some of them will allow your launchers to shoot at patrols and actually remove them from the map, that as long as it's within range. Various things like that. Another one, United We Stand, makes it so all of the comrades underneath the launchers count for control that round. The launchers have HP, hit points equal to how many comrades are on them. So if you stack them up, you know that the Blackfish can't just come through and instantly wipe them out. But similarly, they do take damage if they're sailing through wreckage and stuff. They're going to be bleeding off comrades as they go there. So that's kind of their main thing. One sec. I'll get to the Leviathan next, and we're kind of going, for anybody curious, in order of most complete to still having the most dev. Yeah, to still having the most development for sure, yeah. So the next one up is the smuggler replacements, which were, I think harder than getting the base factions to work, just because there was a lot of decisions about how many points should somebody be introducing into the game, how are they going to be introducing them into the game,
right. What
are the rules of the base game, even do the third-party factions always make dice roll up? Is that their job, or is that a job of the smuggler, right? A lot of hard calls like that. So the Leviathan, the sea monster, works a bit differently. Currently, the way that it will add value to the map is kind of like Snake. Every turn, it's going to move equal to its speed, and it's going to leave behind some body sections. And any region that has body sections in it is going to be worth +1 point at the end of the round. So they don't actively roll up the regions, but as their snake body keeps reeling through the map, they're going to be slowly increasing most of it. They also allow players to gain fame by simply just fighting and killing off sections of the sea monster. So you can go up, you can slay a piece of the body, and score points that way. So they have some stats that they need to kind of manage throughout the whole game here. So the things that they can do are they can eat comrades that are on islands. They also can strike at the patrols that are far away. And both of those things will allow them to either gain more body sections or to continue to evolve on some of their tracks, which will let them either gain more speed so they can move 2 spaces at the top of a turn. But you need to make sure that if you're moving 2 at the top of a turn, that you have enough body sections loaded up so that you can actually be using all of that. So you might need to eat some sharks so you can gain more body sections, increase your speed, and so on. Also, they have dealing with the market, there's a few things. They're a giant sea monster, so they don't start with any money because they don't have any gold.
No pockets.
No pockets, and they also can't recruit crew. They don't have a boat. There's nowhere they would live or anything like that. But what they can do is they can devour crew. They do have an appetite, and there are certain things that they want to eat. So they'll have 3, maybe 2 of these up at the beginning of the game. They have a deck of some other ones. And if they go up to or adjacent to islands that are matching these, they can assign a die to their devour action, and then I can eat, one of the green guys off of the green island, and now I can evolve and unlock my gold plating ability. Now I have this ability for the rest of the game. So that's still a way that they're going to be messing with the market, messing with the comrades, being them that way as well. Might be an association with points for these as well that players are able to score. I saw somebody ask if the body sections can be removed. They can, and yeah, they don't need to be in a contiguous line. Mm-hmm. So the body will kind of get spread out as you go, and even along the track here, as if you increase your speed all the way up to 3, you'll actually even unlock a second head. And the head now is essentially another control point that can attack. It can move at the beginning of the turn. It's where my guys can spawn from. So that's the Leviathan, the sea monster. Do you have any questions, Cole?
No, I mean, that was the first one you designed, right?
This was the first one I designed, yeah.
So there's a very funny dev pattern because
Yeah.
it was over the course of the summer, we had a conversation that was like, can Ahoy be expanded?
Yep.
What would it even look like? And the initial impulse was like, well, we could probably do something else for the smugglers.
Yes.
And you did those, it was viable, and then the blue and yellows got a lot of attention because it really seemed like for a while
No, yeah, for a while I thought the blue and yellow were going to be nearly impossible, I think. And I mean, I give myself credit. I think it's an impressive design feat to have found the space in the game to make 2 more, actually. I had, at the beginning of it, I made a document that was just a list, essentially, of all of the liabilities in the design, where it's okay, well, because we didn't plan on doing these initially. There was genuinely when we developed this and when I was finishing it the first time, we talk about developing to keep doors open or developing to close doors.
Yeah.
And Ahoy was originally designed to close some doors.
Close
Yeah,
doors.
yeah. Keep it tight, keep it small. And it was funny to that. Yeah, I was breaking into my own house. A month, 2 months later, I'm okay, well maybe I can get in here. What doors did I leave unlocked? And there were enough little things to kind of get in there.
But in the funny dev cycle way, you do something. It proves viable, and then you're well, I'm going to go work on the troublesome areas.
Because this works. Yeah,
because this works.
Yeah.
And so, the Leviathan and the Swindler are the ones needing attention right now, but only because you've been working on the harder ones
for longer now. Yes.
But now, of course, we've gotten to the hard.
It's funny to think about it that way for sure.
But I mention it only because dev is never a straight line.
No.
And especially when you're working on a project like this, you end up kind of rotating through.
Yeah, it's you fill up one cup and then it starts tipping and you're oh, okay, I need to balance it out and get some over here. Okay, let's talk about the Swindler now here. So the Swindler, imagine some giant catfish or deep sea creature under what's the name of it? Bottom dweller. Thank you.
Yeah.
One of those. They have 5 dice also, kind of interesting, but at the beginning of the round, they're going to roll all of their dice, just like everybody else, and the Swindler, to no surprise, is about making good deals, being an opportunist, and essentially making the best offers for other players. So after everybody's rolled their dice, you get to look at your dice, your 5 of them, and pick one of them to assign to your sirens. So the reason you do that is sirens, sing songs that people want to go to, and it treats whatever you put here will treat your flagship and any of the resorts that you build on the map as tailwinds for other players. So now I've created my ship is a 5 tailwind that on any other player's turn they can assign a 5 to the tailwind and come over to me. I do get fame when everybody does that, so there's a little bit of a I scratch my back, I scratch yours. The other big thing that they do is whenever they sail on the map. After their sail action, they're going to be putting out a weapons cache or a pearl in an adjacent space to where they are. So pearls and weapons caches are things that can only be picked up by other players, and they are an impulse pickup. They have to be picked up no matter what. Pearls instantly cash out for 2 gold, and weapons caches allow that player to roll a die, an additional one, and add this to their cannons, unload their cannons immediately. Whenever those are picked up, the Swindler scores points equal to the value of the region. So his goal is to get to other players, allow them to like actually get to the resources, and then he'll score 1 point for every time they do that. The resorts that he builds also act as tailwinds, but the reason that he wants to build them is that those will increase the region value, which makes the goods that you have to pick up worth more. So the other big thing, yeah, this guy's awesome, is that he's also the huckster. So he's essentially a moving market. He has the ability to, whenever he's at an island or adjacent to it, he can recruit crew from the market, ignoring the cost. Because he's a huckster and he got them there by nefarious means, they won't give you any powers. They have no abilities. They get on the boat and they recognize that this was not a good deal. They won't actually work for you. But other players now can sail up next to your ship and will gladly recruit the people from your board. So, if I load myself up with a Mystic, Gunner's Mate, very powerful cards, I might want to go position myself near the Blackfish Brigade, who's going to come over to me. They'll gladly buy this for 1 gold. I'm then either able to gain a fame or a gold myself. So you can keep putting pressure on players to keep interacting with you that way. You also have the ability to strong arm, so at some point players will probably stop wanting to buy from you altogether, and you can go up to them and essentially force sales onto them, getting yourself gold value equal to it, where the die ones are actually worth 3. So these cards become very valuable to start forcing onto players, but you're also giving up the most powerful powers in the game for free, essentially.
I haven't played that version yet.
Yeah, I don't think you have. Yeah. And then they also increase, at the end of the round, the resorts on the table will increase the value of adjacent areas. So the moment they establish a resort, there's kind of this, I even like it a little bit more than some of how the smuggler increase happens, because it's an area that's increasing in value nearby, but it also creates a tailwind instantly in the spot. Yep. So there's this gateway to value.
You don't want to, you're not the smuggler, like the out of way zoning, where you sometimes will deliver something
just far over here. Yeah. Because the resorts are also a waypoint, people always have access to trying to interact with that part of the thing. So that's kind of how the factions are currently sitting. The things that are still being figured out a little bit are, I'd say what I'd call the bonus points that players are able to score. Ahoy is very good at being able to handle the direct competition between these two players, but if you've played Ahoy, you know that the reward chart and the pledges for the smuggler exist as a very important noisy element to keep the game just more questionable about who's actually in the lead. So that's the thing I need to make sure both these factions still have, where at the end you aren't just, the smuggler doesn't just turn and go become the sea monster killer for the last arc of the game.
Yeah, it's like that, and also a real fine attention to balance to make sure that we're not making the Bluefin Squadron obsolete.
Yes.
Because we want to make sure that these factions can pair off kind of in any way that they can pair off.
Yeah, right? And that's the thing that I think's been really, it's been really surprising to see, is how the different, as long as you're keeping the action economy about the same, you have a lot more liberty than I would have thought in terms of it. But the big one that is incredibly tricky and is in my mind the limiter on the design at times is those unique ways of putting pieces out.
Yep.
That's the trick of the game, because you only have dice or the flagships or so many pieces to work with that you do need to have interesting ways to actually engage with it, right? So it was interesting to think about how almost all 3 of these are just in that same way of iterations we were talking about. They're one mechanic focused almost. I saw somebody else. Yeah, does this change player count? It does not. It will still be a 4-player game.
2 to 4.
2 to 4, yep. No matter how you want to cut it, but you can go and still, if you're playing 2-player, it still requires 1 blue, 1 yellow. You can't go blue versus blue. Right. You need to have your rival yellow to fight against, or else there's no point to fight.
Right. Yeah.
If it was all blue, you wouldn't be fighting. Just replacements for those. I think it's been it's been fun to see. So yeah, essentially what I was saying before was they essentially all have one mechanic that they're allowed to focus on, is what I was able to find. And it was extra funny to find that both the blue and the yellow can kind of have this like line game.
Yes.
As long as you keep them separate, because the launchers launching at range is still, they have to launch in a straight line.
Yep.
So again, that would seem advantage to the Blackfish Brigade. But the launchers also have the ability to launch over gaps or over sand barriers and stuff. So elements like that keep the like that tension about who's actually able to get it like just right.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to underline what you were saying earlier too about the replacementness of it, there are important ways. I mean, I think Ahoy was sometimes read as like an easier route, but it's a lot closer to like an easier vast.
Sure. Yep.
Like the game has archetypes that kind of need to be inhabited by the players, and Root, especially as we built out more of Root, we've realized that like there's like one archetype that you need in Root, but not really more than that.
Yeah,
whereas Ahoy is like, no, there's like 2 plus an interlopers. There's kind of 3 classes, and we have to work within those classes.
Yeah, I mean, working on the Swindler stuff even reminded me a bit of the Enchanter.
Yeah, for sure.
from TMM again, where it's about this. Again, how do you create a middle position that's interesting, right? And the trick of this one was about forced engagement, right? The pearls and weapons caches are interacted no matter what in the game. So players either have to choose to avoid you, or they're going to be engaging with you because I've decided to put myself into the position.
You like can't hide from a player in a whole.
Yeah,
you can't a little bit with the map.
But yeah.
Cool. So, I mean, all this looks awesome. We are going to be posting this on BackerKit. It'll be our first BackerKit campaign.
Yes. It's going to be coming late fall.
Yep, sometime in the fall.
Yep.
And we'll have someone drop a link to the preview page in the chat. If you were already signed up to our BackerKit page, you're already signed up. You'll be notified as soon as it goes live. We don't know precisely when we're going to be launching it. As soon as we know, we'll be sure to tell you all.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun. This is kind of an experiment with a new platform, new kind of a new kind of thing. But I'm really excited to share Ahoy with our crowdfunding audience. And
yeah, I'm like just excited for people to think about Ahoy more genuinely. I was surprised myself a little bit with how much like more fun I was able to find in the game.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, okay, there's a lot to play with again here. I was excited myself with the designs, which is a really encouraging feel.
Well, I'm always like watching for like what are our interns like talking about at lunch, or like what are people, if they've been playing games at work, are they talking about those games? And it was always nice after the Ahoy test, I would see a little buzzing about like, oh, then you did this thing and that thing, and there were these interesting combos. And it, in the same way that Root Underworld, I think one of the reasons why I really admire how Root Underworld turned out is because I think it helped people understand how capacious like the root system could be.
Yep.
This is like Ahoy becomes so much more when you add these factions in, and there's gonna be tons of content.
Yeah. New crew cards or deck? Not right now. No, not in the plan. I'm really happy with how the crew deck like functions currently. I know some people have some spicy takes about certain suits, but no changes there. With the BackerKit, we're going to be doing the 2 factions, presumably some good freebie for our backers or something.
Well, in the plan right now with the BackerKit is like you'll get all 4 of the factions, and then we'll have something else.
Of course,
that we're figuring out, right? And
to be decided.
Anything
something cool.
Something cool. And I think we have a bunch of things we're looking at right now. But we have to price something.
That's the like not fun logistics side, but it'll be something cool.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's pretty much it.
Sign up for the BackerKit.
Sign up for the BackerKit. Follow along on whatever social media platforms you prefer. We'll be posting more things about it. If you are interested in testing some of this stuff, your best place to start is the Woodland Warriors Discord, and eventually, we occasionally solicit for testers from there. And so if you're really eager and you love Ahoy to play, I'm sure you can find your way into one of our testing places. And next month I'll probably be talking about some of the ARC schedule. I know Patrick will have some things to share about games he's working on, and there'll probably be an Ahoy update.
I'll probably talk more about Ahoy,
because we'll be getting all that stuff ready to go. Cool. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Are there any last questions? Now we just need an Ahoy Fort crossover.
The Bluefin Squadron beat you really bad. Attack them more. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those like, never forget how strong cannons are.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the one where like you hate doing it because it doesn't give you an action, but it's good. Cannons are good. Okay, thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all next month. Take care, everybody.
Bye, y'all.